Hello everybody, I recently had the very special opportunity to fly out to Meta headquarters, meet some of the Camouflaj developer team in person, and test out their brand new Arkham game, Batman Arkham Shadow, about 2 months before it's officially released to the public. Now, not only did I get to play and experience Batman Arkham Shadow for myself, I also got to talk and ask questions face to face with the lead devs behind the game, meet some other Batman Arkham YouTubers that you probably recognize, and overall just get the deep cut, the inside scoop in terms of gameplay mechanics, story, characters, little details, everything. I kid you not, every time we asked a question that was borderline spoiler, Ryan Payton would sort of just go, what the heck, we'll tell him about it, to the point where I'm not even allowed to share the audio from our Q&A session. However, I am still allowed to talk about the Q&A, get into some of the unannounced stuff and whatnot, as well as give my honest thoughts after playing Batman Arkham Shadow, and what we can kinda expect from the game. So sit back, relax, we've got a lot of cool and exclusive stuff to talk about today, so let's just get right on into it. Alright, quick rundown on the basics of the game, because while some of this stuff has been mentioned before, I now have official confirmation directly from the lead devs. So Batman Arkham Shadow is set to take place on the 4th of July, around 6 months after the events of Arkham Origins. Lots of previously explorable areas will make a return, such as parts of Old Gotham, Blackgate Prison, Jezebel Plaza, and more. A ton of previously established Batman Arkham characters will also show up at one point or another, some already having been seen in the trailers, while others have yet to be announced, which we will talk about in further detail later on. Now, in terms of what I actually got to play myself, the demo threw me straight into the sewers at the very beginning of the game, and Ryan Payton told us that there is a prologue similar to that of Arkham Knights, we just skipped it. The demo mostly involved moving through the sewers, going through the Jezebel gun store, and then eventually making it onto a rooftop right next to Ace Chemicals. This was in total about the first 40 minutes of the game, not including the prologue like I said. First impressions, wow, this was insane. I was originally very skeptical on how Batman Arkham gameplay would translate to VR, if it even could translate to VR, but they pulled it off, and they pulled it off better than I could ever imagine. I'll talk more in depth on this later, but free flow combat feels so satisfying and very hard hitting. Predator encounters are fully fleshed out and feel exactly like the stealth in the other Batman Arkham games. Gliding, grappling, movement, it all was just so extremely impressive. Like mechanically, when you think Batman Arkham, this game has it all. In fact, I think that was probably my favorite part of this whole experience. Just discovering and relearning how to do all the classic Arkham moves adjusted to fit VR. Cape stuns where you physically have to grab your cape behind you, do the cape stun motion on a thug, and then they're stunned for something like a beatdown. Inverted takedowns where you can stay perched on top of a gargoyle or hang off it just like in the other Batman Arkham games. Physically launch yourself down at the thug, pull him up, and then punch him off. Heck, you can even throw a battering to cut the rope and make the thug fall down. There's the classic vents and grates where each is perfectly attuned to first person and feels just like it does in the Arkham series. The vents even have the same features where instead of having to physically pull the vent out and push it to the side, you can just slide through it instead to break it open immediately. Like, if you're gonna take anything away from this video, Batman Arkham Shadow may be a VR game, but it is certainly not a spin-off like Arkham Origins Blackgate, the first Arkham VR game, or any of the mobile releases. This is a fully fleshed out 5th Batman Arkham game. And I know a lot of people were worried about motion sickness, especially after hearing that free flow combat was making a return for this game, but as someone who has never had any experience with VR prior to this, I am in the same boat as a lot of you. I didn't feel queasy, sick to my stomach, nothing the entire time while playing. It wasn't just me though, because Clown Puncher told me that he sometimes gets motion sick in VR, but that wasn't a problem at all for him while playing through the demo, and the cameraman even told me that that was most people's reaction to this game. They just don't tend to get motion sick while playing Batman Arkham Shadow. They even have a setting for VR beginners to help with this. I found that to be really cool. Alright, enough about the gameplay for now, let's get into the story because I'm sure that's what a lot of you are most interested in as Batman Arkhamverse fans. When we were talking to the lead devs about the story, Ryan Payton said that one of his goals for this game is to have players finish the main campaign, take off the headset, and ultimately say that this is the best story told within the Batman Arkham franchise. Now, I can't really speak on the matter myself at the moment, only having played a small portion of Arkham Shadow, but I would not doubt if this ends up being the case, considering that he also said the story takes a lot of inspiration from the Dark Knight Returns comics, widely considered one of the best Batman comics ever created. I also specifically asked if the game's storyline took any inspiration from The Long Halloween, mainly because I was trying to squeeze out some info after seeing this cryptic message. However, it also seemed to me like there were some elements of overlap between The Long Halloween and Batman Arkham Shadow, which could potentially be setting up the Arkhamverse's version of The Long Halloween, given that we know what happened and it would have had to have taken place just a few months after Arkham Shadow timeline-wise. I didn't really get much info out of them as far as the cryptic message goes, but Ryan campaign did confirm that they used some elements from The Long Halloween, which is great to hear because that is an amazing storyline. Of course, we've still got that extremely interesting dynamic between Alfred and a younger version of Batman, something that we saw a lot of in Batman Arkham Origins. In the latest trailer, you can see a hint that this dynamic will still be there in Batman Arkham Shadow.
You don't calm down. Someone's going to die.
Alfred, we tried it your way, now we do it mine.
But I also got direct confirmation that this will be explored a lot throughout the story as well, which is great because not only did this whole dynamic lead to one of the best scenes of the entire Batman Arkham series, it also opened up the door for a ton of emotion and character growth for Arkham Batman. Speaking of character growth, supposedly, Batman as a character absolutely goes through the ringer in this game. Now obviously, Batman is still very passionate over compassionate at this point in the timeline, he's very young and aggressive, but apparently we might be able to see his transition into a more mature Batman throughout Arkham Shadow. You like that? Well, here's 3 more unannounced inside scoops for you. For one, not only will Barbara Gordon make a return in Batman Arkham Shadow, but she'll also be talking over the mic to you during this game. Second, at some point throughout the main campaign, the sonic shock battering will become available for Batman to use, so that's cool. And lastly, there will be a multi-battering in this game, but it won't work in the same way as the other Batman Arkham games, no. Instead, since the battering you use is actually the symbol on Batman's chest, it will simply ricochet off of different enemies and then come back to you. Alright, it's time to get into the more gameplay focused areas, and how about we just start with the combat. Now like I said earlier, when Camouflaj originally said that Batman Arkham Shadow would have that free flow Arkham combat, I was wondering how they would manage to pull it off in VR, but they definitely did. To initiate your fight between an enemy, you essentially punch towards the thug, follow the outlines for where you're supposed to punch him, how you're supposed to punch him, what angle you're supposed to punch him at, all that sort of stuff. Way more in depth than I originally thought it was going to be, and it is really hard hitting, to the point where you can like feel the punches. It's insane. If a different enemy starts attacking you from the side, you'll see a little indicator, and you can choose to either use the dodge or make a full arm movement at the thug to counter the attack. That's the very basics. There's a lot more to it, like special combo attacks, including one for your back claw that's unannounced, returning enemy types like knife guys, armored thugs, and shields. Shields are also unannounced, but that's another thing we got confirmation on, and so much more that just screams Batman Arkham, attuned to a very immersive VR first-person experience. I even met a VR YouTuber while I was there, and we were talking at dinner, and he was telling me how he's trained in martial arts, right? Well, he was saying the combat was so good that he didn't even really have to aim for the little circles where you're supposed to hit thugs, because it was so natural and fluid for him to hit people where he would normally using his martial arts training. That's how realistic and in-depth this combat is. It feels brutal and it feels amazing. Speaking of it being more in-depth, another classic Batman Arkham attack I noticed was beatdowns. Now when I first figured out how to do it, I was kind of punching in rhythm, not going super fast, but then I discovered that there was no limit. You could literally just punch as fast as humanly possible. I don't believe I have footage to show of it, but the only way I can describe it is imagine experiencing the infinite Joker beatdown in first person. It was so cool. Now the free flow combat extends beyond just normal combat encounters though, because there's going to be a combat boss fight with Lyle Bolton, aka Lockup, as you probably saw in the trailer, and the devs specifically told us that this boss fight took major inspiration from both the Deathstroke fight and the Rooftop Bane battle in Arkham Origins, 2 of the best boss fights in the entire Arkham series. Also revealed in this small little clip was Shock Gloves. Yes, Shock Gloves will be making a return, but we asked about this and they won't be nearly as overpowered as they were in Arkham Origins. They'll be a lot more balanced. Honestly, I kinda like that decision. As fun as it is to just destroy everybody with Shock Gloves in Arkham Origins, it also completely negates any difficulty for the player. So yes, Batman Arkham Shadow somehow pulls off the classic Arkham free flow combat in VR with all of the little attacks and mechanics, and I'll tell you, when you're actually in the headset throwing punches, looking around, and physically countering incoming attacks, it is one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. I'm not even kidding. Now of course, to go along with free flow combat, the other staple of Arkham is Predator encounters, and much like the combat, Batman Arkham Shadow absolutely nails stealth. Again, like I said earlier, I was not expecting them to have full-on Predator in first-person VR, but this stealth is seriously on the same level as the early Arkham games, I would say, at least complexity-wise. I only got to play one stealth section in the demo though, so I can't speak to how complex Predator gets later on into the game, but all I know is that I was in total shock when I was actually launched into a full-on Predator encounter with armed enemies to take down. Speaking of takedowns, Batman Arkham Shadow has pretty much all of the classic Arkham ways to defeat armed gunmen. Silent takedowns where you physically choke the guy out, ground takedowns where you just go ham on enemies' faces, popping out of a grate for takedowns, corner covers, inverted takedowns. I even watched Clown Puncher do a ledge takedown where he was hanging off off and was just able to launch himself at a bad guy and knock him out. Of course, there's also smoke bombs, and you can either choose to use them manually or just automatically drop it on top of you, just like the other Batman Arkham games. And can we just talk about detective mode real quick? To activate detective mode, you reach up and press the side of your cowl instead of just hitting a button, and I thought that was so cool. So yeah, Predator is fully fleshed out and very reminiscent of the previous Batman Arkham games, and just grappling around, stalking enemies in first person from a gargoyle was insane to say the least. Now, not only did I get to play the game for myself and ask the devs questions in a Q&A, Ryan Payton also gave us a full presentation on the mission structure and world design behind Batman Arkham Shadow, and something I'm sure you'll all really like to hear is that this game takes a massive amount of inspiration from Arkham Asylum's structure. In fact, Ryan was telling us how the Camouflaj team literally went through Arkham Asylum entirely, calculated out the percentage of gameplay elements and when they show up throughout the game, and counted up every single fight and how many enemies the player faces during these fights. They then used all of that data to implement similar mission structure and pacing for Batman Arkham Shadow as well. So the game will be about the size of Arkham Asylum in terms of scope, and will play similarly as far as missions go. I mean, I even noticed this clear inspiration when I was actually playing through the demo, especially during the stealth tutorial. In Arkham Asylum, for your first full-on Predator encounter, you fight 3 armed enemies. Once you defeat those 3 guys, 3 more come into the same room, and you now have to defeat the 3 reinforcements. Well, the same thing happens in Batman Arkham Shadow. When you're inside of Jezebel Guns for your first stealth encounter, you fight and defeat 3 enemies, Alfred tells you reinforcements are coming, and then you have to defeat 3 more. I honestly think this is just a really smart approach considering how good Arkham Asylum's pacing is. This is sort of a don't fix what isn't broken situation that's sure to make the game have a really good structure in terms of crowd sizes and mission design. Another thing, there's apparently an Arkham Asylum inspired courtyard that connects all of the dungeons in the game, and I think they said that you unlock a new gadget every time you beat a dungeon, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Now, something interesting that I found out too is that you can actually return to these dungeons after beating them, and the enemies inside will be fully replenished. So yes, there will be an endgame. It's not like Arkham Asylum in that sense where the game is just completely empty. You can go back to old areas to keep fighting as many bad guys as you'd like. But again, in every other sense, at least in terms of mission structure and the design of this game, they've really modeled it after Arkham Asylum while still putting their own unique spin on it, and I think that's a really good approach. Alright, that's enough on the gameplay side of things for now. Let's get into more of the story elements. So we were asking the devs if there were any interrogation scenes throughout the game, right? I mean, it's an Arkham game, there have to be some. And they said yes, there will be interrogations, so I immediately followed that question up specifically asking about Loose Lips, and the devs confirmed that Loose Lips will be making a return for Batman Arkham Shadow. That's awesome to hear, but it's not just Loose Lips making a return though, because there are a ton of returning cast members from previous Batman Arkham games, and you might even notice some returning dialogue as well, because Camouflaj was telling us how they were going through the other Arkham games and re-recording the classic dialogue lines for Batman Arkham Shadow, and I'm sure you heard one of those in the latest trailer.
It's the freaking bat!
On top of that, I found so many Easter eggs and recognizable locations while I was playing, like in this last scene before the demo ends where you're just overlooking Ace Chemicals, Monarch Theater, Beacon Hotel. I mean, there's just so much fan service poured into this game for Batman Arkham enjoyers, and I think Arkham Shadow is going to be a really fun and immersive experience. Since I don't know where else to put this in the video, I've just got a whole list of cool features right in front of me that I discovered while playing Batman Arkham Shadow or while talking to the devs, so let's just go through all of them. For starters, all of your gadgets are directly built into your suit. For the Batarang, you grab and throw Batman's bat symbol. For smoke bombs, you grab them off of your left wrist, and many more that I didn't get to experience for myself. This way, every Batman gadget is right there for you to use in real time just by grabbing it. No gadget wheel that pauses the game here. If you're wondering, there will also be collectibles in this game, but they won't be the traditional Batman Arkham collectibles because no Riddler. That may disappoint some of you while others are sighing in relief. I myself am a little disappointed about that, I can't lie, but there will still be a wide variety of Rat King themed collectibles throughout Batman Arkham Shadow. Now in the demo that I played, I actually came across 2 of these collectibles. For one, a Rat King statue. Now something that I didn't really understand is that you were supposed to pick it up and throw it on the ground to shatter it. It took the other YouTubers a little while to figure it out too. So we brought this up with the lead devs after we had finished the demo, and they just go, oh, we can have Roger record another line for that. And that was the moment for me. Not only because these guys have Roger Craig Smith on speed dial ready to record more Batman lines for them just like that, but also because they were genuinely taking our inputs so seriously. You can really tell that they care about making this an authentic Batman Arkham experience and making something great for the fans. Now as far as the second collectible I found goes, this one was a radio that you had to pull out of a socket of sorts. What I found really cool about this is that after pulling the radio out, I could literally just hold on and carry carried it around wherever I went. After about 2 minutes, I got bored with it and threw it into some sewer water, and they literally had an animation for that. I was so surprised. Unfortunately though, one negative I have to bring up is that the collectible started bugging out and would constantly go invisible for a brief second while I was carrying it, and that might not seem like a big deal, but that was just the first of multiple bugs I encountered throughout the play session. At one point I couldn't grapple and I had to restart. I wasn't able to slide through the vents at all, even though they said that was a feature, and there were a lot of times where the game would drop frames or even completely freeze for a little while after I entered a new area. However, do keep in mind that I was playing on an early build of the game. Bugs and glitches are to be expected and will likely be mostly ironed out by the time of release. Kinda going back to what I was talking about earlier with the devs taking our inputs so seriously, at the end of our little Q&A session, they turned it onto us and asked what features we would want implemented into the game. Challenge maps were number one, you need those in an Arkham game, and I know I specifically asked for endless maps as well. Clown Puncher brought up I Am the Night mode for Arkham Origins, and the devs said that wouldn't be something in the base game, but they could potentially add it later on post-launch. I also mentioned some attacks and mechanics I had been trying to use in the demo but couldn't, and those were grapple canceling and drop attacks, but apparently those two are both already in the game, they just have slightly different controls than I'm used to. Another thing that I didn't get to see for myself, but I was told by the Arkham channel, classic Batman Arkham death screens are back. The one he found was with Gordon standing over a defeated Batman, and he didn't tell me exactly what Gordon said, but man, I'm just so glad that these are making a return, and I can't wait to see for myself what they look like in VR. Remember how I mentioned earlier that the Batarang is actually just the bat symbol on Bruce's chest and that you can later unlock a multi-Batarang variant of it? Well, it has even more features on top of that. Some things that I found were that you could physically use it to cut ropes while it's in your hand, and you could even toss the Batarang between your hands in VR, and it has an animation for that. It's just so cool. Now, I of course haven't really mentioned gliding at all throughout this video, so let's talk about it. While you're standing on a ledge, it's similar to a cape stun where you have to reach back with both hands, grab the cape, and extend it out. You'll then be able to fully glide and maneuver in first person, and you can even see Batman's shadow extend across the ground. It's awesome. Another cool thing I noticed was that Batman Arkham Shadow reuses a lot of Arkham Knight's UI. After a fight, the Arkham Knight fight summary pops up on your screen and it actually feels like it's there, like you can reach out and touch it. The game also has a main menu extremely reminiscent of Arkham Knight 2, as well as a full upgrade system and moveset description. So yes, that is everything that I discovered about Batman Arkham Shadow while playing the demo and talking to the devs, and based off all of that, I honestly think the game is going to be amazing. Like I've been saying, this is very much a unique Arkham experience being VR, but don't let that fool you because it is still also essentially a full-on Batman Arkham game, the real deal. I mean, it has all the characters, gadgets, features, mechanics, UI, everything that makes an Arkham game an Arkham game. The best way I can put it is that Batman Arkham Shadow is an Arkham Origins 2 story-wise, Arkham Asylum structurally and mission design-wise, and a totally unique and immersive, but still very similar Batman Arkham experience gameplay-wise. I'll say it again, I was very skeptical when this game was first announced. I didn't know how they were going to pull all this stuff off, but after playing it for myself, I'm very excited to get my hands on this game, and that skepticism is completely gone. If you want to buy the MetaQuest headset to play it for yourself too, apparently they'll be sending me an affiliate link, so using that link to support me would be extremely appreciated if you do buy one. Of course, a huge thank you to the Camouflaj team for making all of this happen, and I'll see all of you guys next time.